up, everyone? Today I'm going to be talking about probably the biggest film of 2021, Spider-Man No Way Home. So I hope you've all had a chance to watch the movie at this point. I will be going into spoiler territory here, just as a word of warning. But I'll start out with what I liked about the movie. First of all, it was a joy to see Willem Dafoe return as Norman Osborn / the Green Goblin. Willem Dafoe is great, and I think this film made a good choice to have him unmasked for much of his screen time, because Willem Dafoe doesn't need a mask to convey a sense of menace and be intimidating, but also show us a vulnerability and confusion and helplessness as well. And he was wonderful. Alfred Molina, was great to see him back. And again, he's a fine actor. And he could have made Dr. Octopus this typical kind of cold, calculating, crazy mad scientist character, but he gives little nuances and subtleties to the character. At times in the film, he even has almost fatherly kind of tenderness, and as a mentor of Peter Parker. And I do think Tom Holland is given more room to shine and breathing room to come into his own as the character of Spider-Man here, and not be as much tied into the Avengers and all these moving parts within the MCU. So you can enjoy No Way Home as a Spider-Man film and also as an MCU film. So I think it balances those aspects, and does a better job of balancing them here than in Far From Home or even Homecoming. So Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange was also, loved seeing him again. And I loved his adult kind of teenager dynamic with Peter Parker. And as a digression, it makes me really excited to see what they do with the second Doctor Strange movie, the Multiverse of Madness, which we got a teaser of at the end of No Way Home. And I'm also excited that Sam Raimi is coming back to direct that movie. And although it does give me pause that I heard that it's going back for heavy reshoots. So I guess the studio perhaps wasn't that happy with what Sam Raimi had delivered as a project, and want to reshape it to more something that they think is more in the line with the MCU vision. Why I say it gives me pause is because I feel like a lot of MCU films take a lot of the creative freedom away from the director, and then just streamline it and make it into kind of a corporate movie with a little personal stamp to it. So if you're gonna get a director like Sam Raimi, just let him do his Sam Raimi thing. He knows the comic book formula. He can do action really well. He can do humor very well, and horror is a specialty. So he's a perfect choice to direct a film like Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. So just let the guy breathe and do his thing. I'd rather see a Marvel film take risks and fail, even like the Eternals, even though I didn't see that film, but take stylistic risks and fail, than just be another formulaic movie. Anyway, long digression there, but so for me, the cast really elevate this movie. They're so well chosen to play these characters, and they raise, I think, kind of a half-baked plot, and it doesn't make much sense and is a bit ridiculous. I think they really raise and elevate it and give it more of a heft than it would have had if you didn't have such well-chosen actors in the roles. So this goes into some of my issues I had with the plot of No Way Home, which was kind of a little goofy, didn't make much sense. Yeah, granted it's a comic book movie, but I thought that there were a lot of things were contrived to make things happen, and weren't given much of a motivation or reason for them happening. Um, for instance, when the two other Peter Parker variants return, when Andrew Garfield appears and then Tobey Maguire, um, yeah, there's a sense that they've appeared because the other Spider-Man variants and all the variants are interconnected, and so Tobey Maguire Spider-Man feels called to Tom Holland Spider-Man, but that's not much of a motivation or character motivation to have him be there. So I think that was one issue, because I think this film, as ridiculous as the plot is, does get darker and more serious, and there's tragedy, in the film with Aunt May's death, and so I think it's trying to be more serious and dark. But if you're gonna go with go darker and give more of emotional resonance to the plot, then it's not going to work if you don't have a good ground or structure for why the characters act in the way they do. And so that having the two Spider-Men return, I think, was just there to have them return and to see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire return those roles. There wasn't any really valid reason for them to be there other than just to see those characters return. So I think that the plot just contrived a simple explanation to have them be there. And I would find it hard if I was an actor and having very little character motivation, and it would just affect, I think, the overall performance. Maybe it's one reason I found Tobey Maguire's performance in this a bit stiff and awkward. I mean, I don't know, to you, but for me, he seemed a little kind of emotionally distanced. Maybe because his Peter Parker had aged a bit and some time had elapsed, but it just didn't feel like the Peter Parker that he played in the Raimi trilogy. That said, I think Andrew Garfield did a fantastic job, and I think he really, he when he appears, he breathes a lot of life into this movie, and in some ways outshone the other Spider-Man. So I was surprised because I was more hyped to see Tobey Maguire's return, but then Andrew Garfield shows up, and I'm saying, wow, he is terrific as Spider-Man. He is a really good Spider-Man. He's funny, he has the pathos, the angst, and he does the quips, and he looks the part. So yeah, if anything, I hope this film opens the door for him returning and having maybe even another solo outing, because I'd love to see him reprise the role, and I think he really proved just in his appearance here how good his Spider-Man was. And the Amazing Spider-Man are, I think I enjoy his Amazing Spider-Man films oddly more than the MCU Spider-Man, because they feel, even though they're flawed, they feel more like fully told Spider-Man films. Even though Tobey Maguire is my favorite Spider-Man, and the Sam Raimi movies are the Spider-Man films I probably revisit the most of all of them. Yeah, and another thing about the plot that was just weird to me is the whole villain curing the villains and redeeming them, and I was that seemed a little ethically questionable, because on the one hand I was confused, is once you redeem them and make them good, because plot spoiler, yeah, they come back, and right before they reappear in Tom Holland's timeline, right before Spider-Man kills them in their own respective timelines. So that's how Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, that's his whole agenda, to not go back to his timeline and die. He's trying to prevent that and prevent the deaths of both himself and the other villains at the hands of Spider-Man. So by making him good, does that affect the course of their own respective timelines so that when they return, they don't die because they're good now? So it didn't make much sense to me by curing them all and making them good, and then they vanish and go back to their respective timelines just to die, or what? So I mean, in a film like this, again, like, you don't want to go too deep into how time travel works, but there was no explanation for that, and it seemed a bit silly too, like what's the point? And so it made the whole drive and a purpose of some of the plot, kind of like a little shaky. And also with that idea of curing the villains, also seemed one step away from like lobotomy to me too. It again seemed ethically kind of like questionable, and I was like, yeah, I'm not on board with this. Made me think of this one early Batman issue from the 40s. I think actually it was issue 2, where Batman has this crackpot idea to kidnap the Joker out of the hospital and take him to some psychosurgeon, have him lobotomized so he can be a more valuable member of society. So it seemed like the same kind of thinking here. There's one scene in No Way Home where all the Peter Parkers are in the lab making the formula that's going to cure all these villains, and Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker says to Tom Holland, like, we gotta cure them all, or something to that effect, because that's what we do. But he delivered it in kind of a creepy way. I was like, ugh, man, like, yeah. So again, the whole motivation of the plot seemed to kind of like, split apart at the seams, and it just it didn't have much of a foundation to it that made any sense. And I think one reason for that is that you want to bring back all these characters, and it's hard to provide a solid motivation for doing that, and so a lot of times you have to contrive something on the spot, and it just leads to kind of lazy writing, and then you just don't buy it when you see it. So, and then the whole then it becomes more about nostalgia, and then just setting up some excuse that doesn't make any sense to have these characters reappear just for their nostalgic value. And so even though it was nice seeing these characters return, I think that was my big problem with the film. I enjoyed seeing the characters, but it made me think about other Spider-Man films I've seen that I enjoyed better than the one I'm watching now. So, and so that was my big overall issue with No Way Home. I love the cast. They thought they elevated, kind of a wonky plot, but I think a lot of it was just riding on the nostalgia for like other Spider-Man films, and in my opinion, like better movies than this one. Anyway, those are my thoughts on No Way Home. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.